It's Twin the Aisle with me, Charles Gross, and Leslie Hoban Blake. Tonight reviews of Fleabag. If pretty hurts, ugly must be a... By the way, meet Vera Stark and Hurricane Diane. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Two on the Aisle. And hello again, Leslie.
Hello again, Charlie.
We have some very interesting shows tonight.
We do. 4 shows about and by women.
Yes. And this one we're going to start with Fleabag. This is written and performed by Phoebe Waller-Bridge, directed by Vicki Jones. This was a little ironic for me because I had just finished watching the film version of Shirley Valentine. That was based on a one-woman show that I had seen on Broadway, I guess about 15 years ago, about an English woman. And then you called to tell me about this. And not only is this a one-woman play, but it has been made as a television series, which you can see on Amazon. There's actually going to be a second season. So I did it in reverse.
You did.
I watched the TV show, then I came to see the one-woman show.
And I must say that this one-woman show has had a life for the last 4 or 5 years.
It has.
It's amazing that she brought it over. She also wrote Killing Eve and won the Golden Globe and whatever else they offer over there. And she's a delightful person playing a very undelightful character.
Well, I think that's why it works so well. The character her name is Fleabag, obviously not her given name. And if you watch the TV show, you'll know that the plot of the play actually adheres very closely to that adaptation. Obviously, it's a bit shorter.
They expand it. They give her different stories to tell, right?
And she is, as you say, not a very nice person, not a very...
She's a drunk.
I don't know what's the
She's a drunk. She gets high all the time. She doesn't know where she's sleeping that night, and she doesn't care with whom she does it. Well,
and part of her problem, she sees her own self-worth
as
who will sleep with her.
Right, right.
And she runs a cafe.
She calls it a hamster,
guinea pig. Well, it's a guinea pig themed cafe that her best friend and partner came up with the concept, and we learn that her friend Boo was killed in an accident, and then we learn why.
We learn how, we learn how.
We learn how and why she put herself in that situation. And again, not a character we should despise, but we do not really, because Phoebe Waller-Bridge is such an outgoing person. She has this bubbly personality, and somehow we, against our better judgment, kind of like her.
It's also a question of the times. There are other shows. There's You're the Worst. There's Better Things, all of whom have depressive characters. She's a depressive personality as well. She goes up and down. She's not always on one level. And we've sort of incorporated this into the comedic strain. There's also Crashing, which is not about a woman, but the other two are about women. And it's interesting that right now at this time, it's just sucking into, it's the zeitgeist is what it is.
And it probably doesn't hurt that most men probably would want to sleep with her.
Well, I don't know about most men, but certainly some men would, yeah. But you see, that's not about self-worth. But what would you give this? Because I know you enjoyed it.
I did, and actually there's going to be a second season of the television show. I would give this, to my surprise, given how I normally feel about such characters, 3 3/4.
Well, I would give it 4.5. I'm glad I got you involved in it.
So am I.
And I will say that the audience, I mean, I don't know anybody who was there who didn't know who she was. There were cheers when she came on stage. There's a fan club here for her. It's a short run. I don't know when we're going to show this, but I'm hoping that it's still running. You can go down to the Soho Playhouse on Van Dam Street, not Soho Rep, which is where I went first. Soho Playhouse on Van Dam Street. And an enjoyable, if strange, evening.
Yes, a perfect way to put it.
Okay. Now, I'm going to hold this up, and there's nobody to bleep it, so you can read it if we get close enough to it. But I'm not allowed to say it. So, if pretty hurts, ugly must be a mofo is how I'm going to say it, okay? That's the...
but no hat.
But no hat, right. And this is a play that goes again, written by a woman named Tori Sampson, brand new playwright to me, with a cat. It's based on an African folktale, and it's filled with African-sounding names of actors, several of whom were in the African Mean Girl play, which this is like a sister play to. In other words, there's a beautiful, beautiful girl whose name is, I will get this right, whose name is Akim, and she is wonderful. They say her breath smells like Febreze. And
Well, this is an Africa America setting.
well,
That's what they say.
Africa America.
Okay.
And if you look at it when you see it, you can see that it means African American, right? Yes. And but all the costuming is African. It uses African tropes of, stage setting and movement
accents.
and accents. Yes. And the accents are hard to follow. I did have some trouble, and I pride myself on being able to follow things. But eventually I got the rhythm of it. And there are 4 girls who are jealous to pieces of this beautiful girl, Akim, who is innocent. She walks through life and she gets everything. It's like the girl in the bar who gets free beer and doesn't understand why. That's her life. She just walks through.
Well, the problem is she's been very sheltered.
Yes, her parents are saving her because she is the best of the best. And there is a young boy. She is not affianced to this young boy. As a matter of fact, he is promised to somebody else, one of the other girls. And he falls in love with Akim because who wouldn't fall in love with her? She is tall and slender and beautiful. And also it's also about standards of beauty within the black community itself. Light skin, dark skin, straight hair, curly hair, things that have been going on for centuries within that community, which we are now learning more about, those of us who are not part of that community. So I think that Miss Sampson...
I don't know. I think the basic theme of this show fits into quite a few communities. As a matter of fact, it's really, when you get down to it, this is, as you said, a Mean Girls play. And here's the problem, because they're doing a much better version of it on Broadway, and it's called Mean Girls. And they do dress it up. You have the director, Leah Gardner, I think?
Leah Gardner, yes.
Right. And she's got it all exotic, and there are masks, and there's dancing, and there's a brook or a spring that you have to give a tribute to. But it's kind of, with all these enhancements, you have to realize that it's all it is covering up a play that is very lacking in either character or plot.
Well, see, I don't agree with you. It is a folk tale. Once on This Island is based on a folk tale. Once on an Island is a musical. This is not a musical.
Yes.
But it had you have very strong. It's not long. It's not a long play, and you have very strong.
And 15 minutes of it is
enough for
watching
you.
a girl get out of bed, get dressed, and put up her makeup. I have a wife and 2 daughters. I don't have to go to the theater to see that sort of thing. And
Okay,
trust
Charlie.
me,
So much
it's
for
not all
cultural
that interesting.
expansion here.
Wait a minute. That scene was not anything new in culture, anything that
Gotcha.
anyone who has
Well, I think the point is
any
that
female in their life.
I think the point
might
of
have
that
seen.
is that there's only one standard that has become all over the world, even though people don't live in the same places all over the world, and people don't respond all the same way. All of the people in the play dress in African garb. They don't dress in American clothing
Until the last scene.
until the last scene, which we won't spoil. Which is what the play is over anyway, but we still won't spoil it. Anyway, I want to name a couple of the actors because they're names that you may or may not hear again, and some of them were in the African Mean Girls play, interestingly enough. 2 girls with the same name. I have no idea if they're related. The name is Sitole. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Actually, it's not the same name. There's an H in one and there's not in the other. Yeah, I see. Okay. Anyway, I can't say their first names, but they were charming. The sassy girl's name is Antoinette Crow Legacy. The boy's name is Leland Fowler. And the beautiful, unbelievably charming girl, Akim, is played by Nike Uche Kadri.
Right. And yet, the most interesting character in this play was a cell phone. Played, I don't know, they don't list who played the cell phone.
They say the voice of the river. And the chorus, I believe the chorus was the cell phone.
No. There was an actor, glitzed up, playing
the cell phone, and that was
a cell phone. He was the most interesting.
But he was the chorus, and his name is Rotimi.
Right.
I cannot say that. I want to. Agrabiaka. Okay.
Close enough.
Close
and
enough.
he was the most interesting character in the play as far as I was concerned. And to me, that says it all.
Well, this is Playwrights Horizons. It is following their year of, we're doing this in the month of March as it happened, so this is certainly a feminist play. And what would you give it?
I would give it 2 playbills, maybe 2.5.
because I had trouble understanding it, and because I had to get a script so I could read some of it because I didn't get it, and I think that shouldn't have to happen. I think it should be a little more clear. I would give it 3. I think the extra 0.5 is for effort. I really think that it tried. It tried. It's trying to be something new, and I think that's important. Something not new.
I don't know how new, but
Lynn Nottage.
Yes, Lynn Nottage. This is a revival of Lynn Nottage's By the Way, Meet Vera Stark. And interesting that you should mention what they were trying to do, because watching this play, I was often applauding more what the playwright was trying to do than what was actually accomplished with this play. Now, this was directed by Camilla Forbes. It's at Signature. And it is about a black woman who was an aspiring actress in 1933. And we meet her. She is the maid of a movie star, played very nicely by Jenny Barber. And the movie star is up for her latest role.
The woman you're talking about is Jessica Frances Dukes. Playing Vera.
Playing Vera, yes.
Playing Vera. Well,
playing
you didn't
Vera.
mention her name. So.
Yes, well, I was getting to her. Yeah,
okay.
In time. And the basic first act is her getting what will be her signature role. And as you can see, this is a picture of Jessica Frances Dukes. You can see she is no Hattie McDaniel. And all of a sudden, the play kind of fast forwards 40 years, well, actually 70 years to 2003, where they're having a forum about a retrospective of this actress, and they show the last interview that Vera Stark did.
On a sort of a Johnny Carson type show.
Yeah, in 1973.
Right. So,
and we basically, and that's how we find out what happened to her after this movie was made. And to me, that was the problem, because there was so much that must have happened to her over 40 years. And really...
Well, no, actually not, and that's the whole point. Don't forget that she's supposed to be an actress. Yes. She was a pretty person until Dorothy Dandridge came along. There were no pretty black actresses except for a couple of them in the 30s. Right. And there was a whole billboard outside the theater to show who those actresses were. I can't think of their names now, but you can look them up. And they played companions as well as maids, and they were tough talking as... In a Barbara Stanwyck movie, there was one who was her companion. She was not just a maid. But there were no parts for black actresses. They would put blackface on a white actress if it was a part that was important in a movie. I mean, we're just having the whole thing with the governor of Virginia and blackface right now, and that's what Hollywood did when they shot Tarzan. All the African actors were not African; they were white men in blackface and black body paint.
But you know what? I think it would have been, at least for me, a stronger play had we seen some of this occurring instead of having to hear her talk about it.
But what you see
is, and Vera is not in great shape during this interview, so we really there's a lot
because
we're missing.
You missed this in the first act, and you obviously missed this in the first act. Her friends with whom Lottie and Anna Mae are her two best friends. Mm-hmm. Anna Mae pretends to be Brazilian.
Yes.
She's light-skinned. She gets away with it. There's a producer who is interested in her. Okay, that would never happen to Lottie, who is more in the Hattie McDaniel frame. No, let me just finish my thought.
Yes.
And so when this part is available, they're doing a Civil War movie, and it turns out there's more than just the maid.
This is in the
there
first
are
act,
other
yes.
parts.
Yes.
It's all in the first act. And you see how desperate they are to get those roles. They will do anything to get those
Right.
roles in those movies. And that's really what happened. There were so few roles.
What you're leaving out is that one of them played the Hattie McDaniel type maid. The other goes on to have a career, but everyone thinks she's Brazilian and not black. And that's...
I don't remember her going on to have a career.
Not Vera Stark, one of the friends.
I know who you're talking about. I don't remember her going on to have a career. They said so in the second act? I didn't hear that.
I believe there was...
No, I didn't hear that at all.
Again, but we know she masqueraded
the white girl with the blonde hair, Gloria Mitchell, went on to have a career.
Yes.
She did not.
And she appears, and one quip that we both agree on, I think it's the only thing we do agree on this play, is that Jenny Barber looked a little too young.
At the end of the play,
given that both women were about this,
and they put a schmata on poor Vera Stark in the end.
Duke, yes.
It was
for the interview.
It was multi. Now this is the 70s. I remember clothes from the 70s. I don't remember anybody walking around looking like a mattress. I swear to God, that's what she looked like. Various colored stripes and pieces coming out of it. And I mean, the 70s were ugly clothes, but they weren't that ugly. I'm sorry. I never saw anything like that.
All right. If you say
but
so.
I have to say that I really liked the play. I did like the play. I liked it the first time. I liked it this time for different reasons because they emphasized different things.
I liked what
It is Lynn Nottage.
I liked what the idea of it. I liked what they were trying to say, but I didn't feel it was said strongly enough, and I think they jumped too quickly from.
The play does that.
It's
not they. The play does that.
Yes,
the play is
I know,
okay,
and I think the play jumps a little
may
too
be
quickly.
Right.
I wanted to do more than just meet Vera Stark,
Right.
and that's really all I got to do with this play.
Well, okay.
So I will give it 3 playbills.
I'll give it 3.5, but I do think that there were some excellent performances.
Oh yes.
And I thought I just have to say that the young lady doing the Brazilian accent would come in and out of a Brazilian accent and go back to talking street talk. I thought it was amazing. Anna Mae Simpkins, Cara Patterson is her name, and Lottie was played by Heather Alicia Sims. Just so we get those names in, because I think they all did a really good job. So our last, no, you're going to do. Wait, how do
No, you're going to.
I'm doing 2 in a row. How did that? Oh, you did that one.
did-
Sorry,
I did this
talked
one.
so much about it. Okay, we are talking about a play called Hurricane Diane, and
Oh, dear.
Charlie and I almost came to blows over this play. Okay,
And we still might.
we're going to show you a picture of the leading person in the
Who
play.
Leslie has become obsessed with.
I'm not obsessed with. I read up, and now I understand who this person is. And I'm very careful not to say he or she, because the person is trans and prefers the term they and their. I got to try to do that for the whole thing because it's that person's right. Okay, Madeline George wrote this play. It's about the return of Dionysius. And remember that the gods are gender fluid. They're not only gender, they're species fluid, if you think about it. But they're definitely gender fluid. So over the centuries, Dionysius has come back as Diane. And Diane is a...
Well, he hasn't come back. He is making a comeback for reasons that are never fully explained.
They're totally explained in the opening monologue.
No.
The world is coming to an end. We are using up all of our resources. Dionysius was also the god of planting. And
As well as wine and ecstasy.
yes. And usually it was played by an effeminate man, which is interesting because it says here, the butch charm factor. And that's what you get in abundance with the actor whose name is Becca Blackwell, who is a cisgendered person who is trans. I got to get these phrases right. Transgendering to a male, and working her way to that, working their way to that. Anyway, but for the purposes of this play, they present themselves as. It's going to take the whole thing to do that. They present themselves as a rather butch lesbian who has come to this little cul-de-sac in New Jersey, in Monmouth, New Jersey, to seduce 4 women into becoming acolytes. And by the way, that's the theme of the Bacchae, which is Dionysius needing to find 4 support. So, it goes back way, way before this. And they're very interesting women. The women are played by very different, but they're all types. They're archetypes. They're not real.
It comes off. I would say it comes off like a Real Housewives or Desperate Housewives setup. Except having never seen either, I can't say for sure.
Well,
But
I have seen both, and you're right.
I find it interesting that this is a joint project between the New York Theater Workshop
and the
Women's Project. And the main thrust of this is a guy turned gal. Who is trying to seduce 4 women. I mean, the whole environment theme really gets shoved aside. And certainly, is this within character of a Greek god? Absolutely. Does it make much of a play? No, not really at all. Plus, as Diane, Becca Blackwell, I don't understand why he feels why the character, no, not they, Dionysus, who...
Okay.
Feels the need to transform to a woman. That's never fully explained. And also, they looks like more of a Dan than a Diane. So I'm wondering, what is the point here?
In the framework of Leah Delaria, whom I know you've seen on Orange is the New Black, and who is Becca Blackwell's friend and perhaps icon, to look up to. That is the kind of femme that this Dionysius is presenting.
Yeah.
And that is attractive to a lot of people.
Okay.
Maybe not to you and maybe not to me, but to a
and
lot of
this
people.
Leia Dunham from Girls.
Yes.
She looks like a female.
Leia Dunham is a female. Leia Dunham is not a transgendered person.
I know, but if you're going, I know there are plenty of transgender actors who look like male or female.
This role was written
not
for Becca Blackwell. This is the person that was wanted to be in it. And again, I will say the butch charm factor is what they're looking for. Okay, we're going to have to wrap it
My
up.
conclusion,
Yes, what are you going to give
Dionysus was also the god of theater. And if he had come and seen this, he'd have been as discouraged about the theater as his onstage counterpart was on the environment.
Okay, well, what would you give it?
I would
what
give
would you
it
give it?
2 playbills.
I will give it 3.5. I thought a lot of interesting things went on in it.
Hello, I'm Charles Gross.
And I'm Leslie Hoban Blake in disguise for a reason I'll explain later.
And this is Two on the Aisle First Impressions. And tonight we are talking about Ain't Too Proud, the Temptations musical. Guess what it's about?
I don't know. What could it possibly be about? It was about 2 hours and something minutes, but it's also it's the story of the Temptations from their beginning in Detroit, and all up to the 24 other people who played the Temptations since then.
Well, but mostly the original and the immediate replacements for them, seen through the eyes of Otis Williams, one of the founders of the group, and the only one of the original Temptations still alive, who had a hand in shaping the show, very strong one.
Very much so. And it's directed by Des McAnuff, and we were just saying that he had his high with Jersey Boys, his low with Donna Summer, and I would say this comes right smack in the middle of all of that. I came in ready for the music. I got the music. That's all I really cared about. The story is, so-so.
It's a kind of by-the-numbers biography.
Yes. And there's a lot of numbers in this one.
And they are good, but I never quite felt the energy that I had expected. I mean, this was a Motown group we're talking.
Well, they all dressed in gray for the whole first act. I mean, it was like 50 Shades of Gray, It's just interesting. Because it takes place in Detroit, it was all dark and automotive city looking, kind of thing. But, look, I had a good time. I brought someone who's only seen one other show, and she just fell all over herself with this. She sang the songs. Your wife sang the songs. We all, it's the music of our youth. It's the music of our lives.
And if you like the music, you will enjoy it. I still felt the musical numbers could have been stronger, but I did have a good time.
I had a good time. It was as good, if not better, than I expected it to be.
Okay, well, I can't say the same. I did expect more, but we'll go into details on a future Two on the Aisle.
And we're talking about The Cake
at Manhattan Theater Club,
by Becca Brewstetter,
directed by Lynn Meadow.
and starring Deborah Jo Rapp,
Yes.
who you may remember from that 70s show.
Well, because if you turn on your television set, it's on at some point in the day.
Okay, now this is kind of, I think, a modern The Price of Thomas Scott, which
Yeah.
here we have a character played by Deborah Jo, a baker, who has to decide whether to bake a cake for her goddaughter, who's having a lesbian wedding, which is against the baker's morals.
Right.
And
Such as they are, given the rest of the play, but we'll talk about that in detail.
right. And it frankly lacks the charm of Scott. It's a bit on the predictable side, but the characters are...
Yeah, it was sitcom, and it wasn't good sitcom. It was it wanted to be about something important, and because it became sitcom, it wasn't about something important. It didn't even reach the level of Will and Grace for me. I'm sorry.
Okay. And, well, I don't know about Will and Grace, but I don't think it reached the level of Thomas Scott.
Well, yes, but I'm saying, given that the writer is from This Is Us, which is a television series, I would have thought that a series that I happen to like very much, which is a dramedy, not a comedy.
We're not reviewing it.
No, I know that, but what I'm saying is I would have expected it to rise to at least somewhere near that level, and it didn't. It didn't come up to that
and
at all.
we will discuss this a little more at length on an upcoming Two on the Aisle.
Okay.
Boesman and Lena at the Signature Theater, where we almost live. It's one of Athol Fugard's very earliest plays. This is directed by Yael Farber, who's a woman, and
I think that's Yael.
oh yeah, okay, yeah, and I bow to your superior knowledge of Hebrew names, and we're going to have to go with my pronunciation of African names, Zanab Jah and Zar Nagala, who play the two title characters, and there's a gentleman named Thomas Silcott who plays an older person who speaks only one language, and
it's not English.
Osa with a little click in it.
Right. And it has a very Waiting for Godot vibe.
Absolutely, and the staging in particular was a little tree thing sitting there.
And to me, there was a smidgen of Moon for the Misbegotten.
I'll let you have that one. That's completely on you. But I just wanted to say, I saw this play originally. I also saw it later on when Lynn Thigpen did it. I was moved by it. I was moved by it for different reasons when I first saw it, because then I was concerned about South Africa and the apartheid, and now it's worldwide migration and immigration that just ran right through my head, and how a play that is this 30 years old can still be this prescient about what's going on in the world is really quite amazing.
Well, that a play that is 30 years old can still be relevant does not surprise me. However, I'm glad you enjoyed it, because aside from Jah's performance as the woman, she talks almost non-stop.
Zanab. Jah is... Oh, Jah, I'm sorry, you're right.
And she talks almost nonstop for 2 hours, and she is phenomenal. But I have to say, I sadly I found this play very tedious, very long, and yeah, while acknowledging what it's representing, I just found it so hard to sit through.
Okay, well, it's meant to be hard to sit through. It's very difficult. It's very searing material. It's about female abuse. The name that I'm not supposed to say, probably the song that John Lennon and Yoko Ono wrote, called "Woman is the Nigger of the World," kept running through my head as I watched this poor woman being... It's bad enough both of them are downtrodden, but he has to make himself superior to her. He has to find a way to make himself superior. He has to beat on her.
Well, this is something I think we will save till we do our formal review. Bottom line is, Leslie liked it. I did not, and this is First Impressions. That is our show for this evening, and when you go to the theater, look for Leslie and me, us too.
On the aisle.